Welcome to Dynamics Corner Podcast, your go-to resource for all things Microsoft Dynamics 365. I'm your host, Kris.
And this is Brad. This episode was recorded on May 18th, 2023. Kris. Another episode in the books. And in this episode, we had the opportunity to speak with Blake Cheek from Ingram Micro about something that I don't know if I understand any more or less of, because it's confusing, and I think you need to have a college course or program for this, and that's licensing within Business Central and Power Platform. Blake's Logitech camera is known to cause poor frame rates at 4K resolution.
Well, good thing we're not doing 4K.
It's a very good thing we're not doing 4K.
That would be... I don't think we'd have the bandwidth for that.
Well, it records locally.
Yeah, true.
So it's pretty good. All right, beautiful. What should I do? I have to hide this pop-up. All these new things that I see every time we use this.
It's pretty cool software. How'd you find out about it?
I don't know. I had come across it from reading something or an ad. I know Kris had heard about it too. We talked about it for quite some time.
We had a guest actually use this.
Oh.
Yeah. And then they're like, nice. And then we researched it like a month later. It's like, actually, this looks legit. Let's try it out. Yeah,
and it works rather well because some recent podcasts, we had some bandwidth issues. And if I were recording it like we were doing before, the quality would have been poor. But with the Riverside, buffering it locally and then uploading it after the fact, or as the podcast is being recorded, you can't even tell. So it's if you have any outages or anything, you just kind of talk through it, because once the podcast gets recorded, it's fine.
Still better than recording a Teams meeting.
Teams is the worst, man. Teams is the worst. Kris, you even have a good upload rate. That's I'm impressed. This is the best I've seen you.
It comes and goes, man. Sometimes it's a good day. It's nice. It's nice out. So it's nice and clear.
No, that's pretty good.
Yeah.
All right. So here we are. As you can see, I always get ready with the recordings right away, as I told you. So we'll just kind of jump into it now and see. Maybe a little out of it, but Kris is always out of it. So we'll join the club and we'll be together.
Congrats again, Brad, by the way.
Oh, thank you. It's it aged me 15 years overnight. So
yeah, I would have never guessed.
No, most people don't. Most people really don't. And when I say that, they're like, "What?" But I'm a lot older than most people think. I drink a lot of water and vodka, so that's the trick. Water and vodka do it. Stay away from soda and beer. And that's my trick to success. So, you guys ready to go?
Yeah, let's see what's up.
Yeah, just kind of wing it, man. That's my philosophy. All right. See, now I'm a little slow this morning. Kris and I were just talking. Anyway, Blake, good morning, good afternoon, good evening. How are you doing this morning today?
Good. How about you?
I'm doing very well,
Awesome.
Very well. Thank you. Thank you for taking the time to speak with us today. Been looking forward to speaking with you. As I always say, I'm looking forward to speaking with everybody. I could do this every day, all day. I have so much fun doing it. And I appreciate everyone taking their time. Kris, how you doing over there?
I'm hanging in there, man. It's been a crazy week. So, this is a good break of doing another episode. So I'm excited about it.
Yeah, it's good. I want to make sure you're awake over there. Sometimes people don't realize the hours that we do these things. Sometimes, I'm waking up and Kris is going to bed, or, vice versa. So that's what I like about the time zones and the time differences. Fortunately, this one's not too bad for either one of us. But Blake, thank you for taking the time to talk with us today. Interesting topic as always. What are we going to talk about?
Licensing, I think.
Licensing, you think? See, I always have to ask the question, right? Because we talk with everybody, have some great conversations, And then they show up, and I just want to make sure that they know what they're talking about, because I could have switched the topic on you and said, we're actually talking about how to do a successful implementation.
Well, where you start and where you finish.
Two different things. No, we're here to talk about licensing. It's one of those things that I try to stay away from. Early on in my career, I understood the licensing and I knew about the licensing. If you think back to Navision at that time, you had the granules, they called them. It was a little confusing then, which kind of predates everybody. I am a dinosaur, and I saw a post I had with somebody yesterday talking about dinosaurs after KB posted his link about being a dinosaur, and with him being a dinosaur, I should be extinct at this point. But I'm like a Gregorus. What was it, Chris? A Gregorus, which is like an old dinosaur that adapted to live in Alaska. So anyway, back in the Navision days, they had the granules, which were confusing enough as it is. And then as times progressed, the licensing changed. And today, I think you could have 2 full-time people who follow the licensing updates, and neither one of them could understand licensing, because licensing within the Microsoft stack, I don't even know. It's like a foreign language to me. So that's why, Blake, we put you on the hot seat to hopefully enlighten us and tell us a little bit about what and how this licensing works.
Yeah, I think I can do that. We before the top of the call, folks, we were talking. Brad says he's older than he looks, and I think that we'll be able to tell that based off of your knowledge of licensing, right? I think that you come from different eras of licensing. I will say I'm incredibly inept when it comes to some of the historical licensing. I know a little bit about, GP, but you really do have to have a history degree to understand how to license in Microsoft, because the pace it moves at, right, is so intense and so fast, that what you knew 2-3 years ago could already be wrong. I do think that creates a little bit of frustration in the channel. Like you said, you're like, hey, this is how it was in Nav, or this is how it was in GP, and here it is just 2-3 years later after some of that stuff, and it's a completely different model.
It gets worse every day, I think, because now you have licensing for Business Central, you have licensing for Office with all the different, license levels, which I still don't even understand. I see E5s, I see E3s, I see all these other little acronyms. I have no idea what they mean. And now when you have the integrations with other systems, you have the connector licenses, you have the team licenses, you have the member license, you have... I wish that somebody could just say, you buy this license, you can use the product. Good luck.
Well, one day, I think we could come to that. If I were speculating a little bit, it's been in the past 2 years that Microsoft came out with the pay-as-you-go model for some of the Power Apps and Power Automate stuff. And I'm curious to see where that road leads, because that would be very much like you're talking about, where, hey, as long as you have this Azure subscription and you tie it into your environment, you could be there.
Well, hopefully, but pay as you go, you can blow all your money too, because then you start using all of these services and you're not certain what it all is going to cost. And next thing you know, you used 40,000 gigabytes of disk space, 2 million hours of CPU time, and you have a $4 billion credit card bill at the end of the month.
Oh yeah. And that's why, to your point, I know enough about Azure to skim the surface. I don't like to go deep into that. There are cost management tools, you can set, there's a burstable sort of vCore thing for Power BI that's predicated on having an Azure subscription as well. And they say, hey, you can control how many vCores, you go up, but all that cost management stuff, it scares me,
That sounds already
because you can have your free Azure subscription. It is, right? So that's just it. Oh, I want to simplify my Power Automate or Power Apps licensing.
You lost me at burst.
I've never heard of that term
simplify your
before.
Power Apps or Power Automate licensing, but now you have to know Azure in order to do that. It's like, hey, no matter which way you turn, are you making the right decision? But that's where I come in.
Okay, perfect. So let's go through a licensing journey. I like to go through journeys to get a better sense and understand and explanation. So can we talk Business Central licensing?
Yeah, sure.
With you?
Sure, love to.
So we'll start with Business Central licensing and see where we meander. And I know that, like I had stated at the beginning, licensing is a complex beast. And I think, anything that we even say today probably could be different by the end of the day.
Could be. I'm waiting for someone to watch this and comment, oh, well, he was wrong on this, and this.
That just changed 5 minutes ago.
Yeah.
Be wrong. If you're wrong, be wrong with confidence.
You got that actually, as they slide the glasses up,
Actually, it's not an E5, it's an E3 that he was talking about. No, so go into Business Central licensing. What are the options for Business Central licensing? And like I had mentioned, I work with Business Central often.
Right.
I turn a blind and deaf ear whenever anybody talks about licensing. All I know is how to assign permissions to a user.
Hey, well, let's start.
Yes. Well, I don't want to learn that at this point, to be honest with you, because I it's there's so much within the application as it is that I try to focus on understanding and using and developing in the application versus understanding the novel of licensing. So within Business Central, what are our basic license options?
Yeah.
And we can maybe talk about in detail what some of them do.
And what does it come with?
Maybe you can yeah. Hey, and that's a good question because sometimes I feel like some of the components are perhaps a little oversold, for what they are. But you have at the core, right, at the top level, you have your essentials license, which, at least Microsoft's transparent about the pricing on these things, right? And crazy enough, not to tangent too much, but we saw price increases in some markets. Some of our friends over in the European area saw prices increases on BC recently that they had to navigate through with their clients. But back to the topic.
Well, I don't want to throw you off. They are transparent with the pricing.
Yes.
I will say that.
Yes, for sure.
But what you need is another story. That's not so transparent.
It is. Yeah. And, and sometimes when you're doing a deployment, right, it comes down to, hey, we're getting ready to roll this out. Let's see what we really need, right? It's all kind of a guess until you get to that deployment stage. But you have essentials, right, which is your core sort of floor level license. And then you have premium, which is sort of your upgraded version of license at the core. For me, the difference between the two is that premium deals in manufacturing and service order management. Essentials is much more of just finance and just supply chain, if you want those things. I consider those to be the core competencies of Business Central. Now, if you look out there, it'll say that it provides a lot of other operational capabilities. I have my licensing guide up on my other screen. That is, your highest authoritarian text on the topic. And, they'll say, hey, it's got some CRM and all this stuff. But I look at the CRM in Business Central and say, does it really?
And you do have that authoritative guide, but I think that you using it as a quick reference, you won't be able to go fast enough. So
yeah.
I give you credit for going through this. So you have your essentials license, which is the basic application minus manufacturing and service.
That's the way I
premium
look at it.
gives you manufacturing and service. Those license, and I've heard that from many people, and I think that is a good way to explain it because it's you get everything but manufacturing and service, maybe a few other little things. But if you're looking, either you're a manufacturing company or you're not. You need to use service orders or you don't, which can help guide which license you need in this case.
Yeah,
in my opinion, among other factors. There's always a but, right? There's no concrete in an ERP implementation because it's you say one thing and say, well, what if it's raining on Tuesday? So the essentials in the premium license gives a user full access to the application. That's read, write, post, anything that they can do in it.
Full crud.
Okay. Crud. Create,
read, update, delete.
Update, delete. Got it. Crud.
Good old crud.
Okay. So are there any other license options? I know I've heard I don't even know what they call it anymore. I know there were some at one point they had licenses where you had like a limited license, you like do certain functions only or read certain data. What other license options do we have?
Yeah, sure. So you have a couple of other licenses. You have your team member license, which I consider a read-only license. I do think that's a little bit of an oversimplification on a team member license. You do have some read-write capabilities within, I can't even remember what UBC guys call it, within your table range or object range, I believe. So you have that, and then you have your device license, which has very specific use cases, things like warehouse, shop floor device, point of sale. And, when we were at Directions together not long ago, and Microsoft was talking about that, they did say, hey, those are meant for those very specific use cases. It's not meant to sort of dip, dive, duck, dive, and dodge, as they would say, as some would say.
So the device, so there's a team member license, which gives someone read-only access to the application with some modification.
Yeah, some
rights.
Limited modification.
I mean, are they defined modification rights, or is it?
There's some documentation out there somewhere. I don't think it's the clearest on Business Central as it is for some of the other applications where you go to the licensing guide and they have like literal functions and bullet points, and it'll say, hey, team member license can do X, Y, and Z. I don't know why they haven't put that in the licensing guide for BC. Microsoft, if you're listening, please help.
Okay, so you have, and then the device license is for like a handheld device or some other device.
Yeah.
In the where that's maybe not user specific, but function. Yeah, it's one of those days. Function specific.
Yeah, I use like a barcode scanner a lot, right, as an option where you might have people in shift work, scanning for pick, pack, put, and so but that person goes away at the end of the day. They don't necessarily need their own personal access because the next person on the next shift is going to come in, pick up the same scanner, use it the same way. Those might remind you of some of your legacy ERP licenses because those allow for concurrent logins, right? You have two barcode scanners running at the same time in the warehouse. You have two people who are going to be using it. You need two device licenses.
Got it. I remember those. They had concurrent licenses, and then they went over to named users.
Yep.
I remember the progression of that, which is interesing. Okay, so are there any other licensing options?
Yes.
that team member licenses. I think it's the last time I remember. I think you can only do like up to 5 tables or something like that. That might have changed by now, but that was very complicated to explain to some of the customers. But you can't read anything within Business Central. It's just the right is very limited. It's what it was about.
Yeah, exactly. That's why I tell people if you're looking at it for those right capabilities and really trying to split hairs, you might be going down a super weird path.
Is there a big price difference between all of these as of today?
$30 difference between Essentials and Premium US side, right? So it's right now 70 US MSRP for Essentials, 100 for Premium.
Okay.
Team members is 8.
So there is a big difference, and that's why people try to split hairs on it. Thankfully, I don't deal with that. But to have a $62 or $92 difference, is the team license the same regardless of Essentials or Premium?
Yes.
Okay.
So
yes, so that is a big difference. I can see why people would try to squeeze as much as they can out of it.
Yeah, and device, don't quote me on this one. I think it's like 40.
I'm not quoting you. We're just recording you.
Yeah, I
No
think
pressure.
a device is somewhere around 40.
Okay. Yeah, we have to have a little fun while we this, as we always, as we were talking, a few times before. It's just what I do. Okay, so what else do we have in with the licensing options?
Well, last one.
I have a lot of questions on this.
No, it's good. It's good. The last one you sort of have, and I don't consider it a licensing option as much as a licensing entitlement. and that is your external accountant licenses. So you get 3 external accountants. Yeah.
External accountant.
Yeah. So think about if you are, I don't know, you could be a multinational conglomerate if you want, right? You can run that out of Business Central. Maybe you just have a company and some subsidiaries. But let's say you have someone you keep on retainer, helps you do your books, maybe around tax time, or helps you with audits or something like that, who is not a paid part of your own personal organization. You can invite them into the org to operate as an accountant.
And that license has specific functions for an accountant. What would be a good classification for those? And is there a price difference? Also, can I get creative and just say that Kris is my external accountant and give him that license to not have to pay the $70 for Kris?
So I'll navigate this minefield as best I can. External accountants, I think the minute that person is a identity, I don't know if it only counts for named identities in the Azure AD, or even if they're a guest user in Azure AD. I don't know how deep it goes there. Forgive me. But the minute they are an identity in your Azure AD, we'll just keep it very high level, that external accountant license, per my understanding, is not supposed to be operational at that state. It's for people who are literally outside of your Azure AD, literally outside of.
So the intended use is if you have an accountant that audits your books or comes in monthly, if you're a smaller organization, doesn't have a full-time accountant on staff to do their accounting functions, and that's it.
That's the spirit of the license. It says that they can do everything except access user setup or administrative tasks. So it sounds pretty powerful.
Oh, so that's more than an accountant.
Yeah,
they can do everything, but
it's up to the fine admins out there to start to limit that.
I understand. So how much does an external accountant license cost today in US dollars?
So you get 3 for free, just by virtue of having Business Central. 3 of them, and which is a pretty good deal. I don't. My finance needs are not that complicated.
Wow, 3 for free. That's actually pretty good. Which is interesting. So, okay. What other options do we have from license? And we have the essentials, we have the premium, we have the team, we have the device, and we have the external accountant.
Yeah.
And then maybe we can talk about how we assign these licenses at some point too, if we have time today.
Yeah, maybe. The only other thing and this again is more of an entitlement than paid license, obviously, is, Microsoft, I believe it was in the last year or so, started giving some very light access to Business Central data within Teams, right? So that you would have people who could at least, even if they can't get into the data, they can at least see things, perhaps like adaptive cards and some of the other cool stuff that's going on in Teams.
So the integration, or what is the word for it? What did they talk about this down at Directions? That new $20 connector license or something like that?
Some add-on.
I saw it. I have a slide for it somewhere.
Yeah,
so that
my camera roll full.
Yes, no, and it just seems like it was so long ago, but the reality is it wasn't, which is interesting enough as it is.
Oh, Brad, I know what you're talking about. I remember now.
What's that?
I remember. Correct me if I'm wrong here, but you've always had your base and attach model in Dynamics. And so Business Central could always attach to sales professional or customer service professional, sort of your SMB or very modest needs offerings. But they're upping it now to where you'll be able to attach sales enterprise or customer service enterprise to Business Central as well. So if people have more complicated CRM needs or customer service needs, now they can bring it in. And those are $20 for the attach.
Okay, that's the term, attach.
I mean, I took the picture. I took the picture and I thought it was cool and it was meaningful. But as I told you, I focus a lot on the application, the technical side, the functionality side, trying to learn the licenses where I know what I know.
Yeah.
And where I need to stop. And this is where
they
I
have
need
master's
to stop. So I
degree
am
for
a little
those.
naive in the licensing area. Say again?
They have master's degrees for those, just to understand licensing.
Oh, I know. And it told you at this point of my life that, the dinosaurs just leave it to the people such as the two of you to figure out the licensing. So the Teams connectivity, though, but they do need a Teams license.
Yeah, you need to have some sort of Teams permission. However you do that, right? To your point, there's so many ways it feels like to get access.
Can we go down that minefield?
Oh, I don't know. I'm not a modern work guy. The
See, the license. This is what I said. You could have 2 full-time people just doing licensing, and they couldn't cover it all because it's such a broad ecosystem. Because you have the Business Central licensing. Now we branch over into the world of Power Platform, where you have Power BI, you have Power Automate, you have all these features and functions, and then those all require licensing. So if you want to connect to Business Central from the Power Platform, what do you need for a license? Like, these are all the questions that I have, and the questions that you go down, because they show all the.
I think for the Business Central access via Teams, this was like last year. So you need a Microsoft 365 license. Any of those will give you at least read access, or at least there's a minimum, but it didn't require a lot, so that you can actually just read the adaptive cards and be able to interact with that.
Yeah,
you got very basic functions,
share records
around that.
Yeah.
And if I wanted to interact with Business Central from within Teams, then I would need to have one of the licenses that we discussed a moment ago.
Yeah, if you want to be able to, like, as far as I know, click the hyperlink and go into the app and do anything actionable really with the data. But it's cool to be able to drop the product into Teams and have the adaptive card come up for it.
No,
I think it's great. I liked it.
Brad, you mentioned about the, extending the arm, or at least user rights or use rights for Power Platform. You mentioned about Power Platform. It is like if you have Business Central licensed, like Essentials or Premium, you do have use rights for Power Apps or Power Automate. Even if you have team member license, you have the use rights for Power Apps and Power Automate. For Dynamics 365.
You lost me back at the beginning.
It's very complicated.
So because now, if I have a Business Central license, you're saying that I could interact with Business Central through Power Automate.
Yes, you can interact with it, or you have use rights. Yeah. Now, I don't know the limitation. You'd have to like read into how far you can go with those.
So I got Microsoft's got a great snippet that they say for that stuff, and that is, at least I know it is on the customer engagement side, the answer is within the context of the application. How you interpret that, I don't know. I take that as to extend the functionality of the application you're using. But Kris, to your point, yes, you get a lot of there's a lot of actually inherent Power Apps and Power Automate use rights you get through virtue of lots of different, even modern work licenses. It's limited to basic functionality, non-premium connectors, which is interesting because that really goes away from the very strict structured licensing that we were just talking about with Business Central.
Okay. What is modern work licensing?
Modern work, Microsoft has what they consider the 3 clouds, right? You have your business applications, which is Power Platform, Dynamics. Modern work is your Office, your security stuff, whatever they call it, Intune, Entra. I can't keep up on that side anymore. And then, Azure being your 3rd cloud. So when I think about modern work licensing, just think O365,
M365. Just really quick too.
You said 3 clouds. I don't know why they don't call it like Cirrus, Stratus, Cumulonimbus instead of all this other stuff, just to make it easier for me.
Quick note on the use rights for clarification. Microsoft does a bunch of write-up on this one, and you do have to refer to licensing guide, which is they give you a little bit of snippet, and then they'll say, hey, read everything else on the licensing guide. But it entitles the user read with Business Central through a simplified interface, for example, like Microsoft Teams, but nothing above that. In terms of client access, you can access the Business Central app for Microsoft Teams, but everything else you can access. To your point, Brad, you can't just go to a web client or the mobile app or interact with any of the APIs. So it's very limited, and it's just using the Business Central app when you add it to your Teams uh, tenant, and that's it. Very limited.
Yeah, I don't. You both still have lost me, but I'll continue with the conversation. See, I could be sitting in the room with you. You could be selling me this, and I just be like, just tell me what to buy, and I'll buy it.
Yeah.
So if I want to use Power Platform, do I need another license?
Yes. What, in the context of Business Central or just in your life?
See, this could be a trick question. Because then with the Power Platform, you have Power BI, you have Power Automate, you have
Power Apps,
the Power Apps,
Power Pages now, which was Portals.
I really think I should have lived in the time of punch cards, where you just had a punch card, you put it in the computer, you had the application come out, and you were done. Now, anything you think you know has legs, and it spiders off, because just yesterday it was so simple. Today it's a little bit more complicated. They make development in the application quite a bit easier, but which can also be misleading. But now you need this. So if you want to use Business Central with Power Platform, do you need to purchase additional licenses? With that catch also being, what if you want to develop something within Power Platform, such as a Power Automate with the workflows? Workflows is one big thing. We covered the Teams integration, which was a hot topic when it was added, and it still is because of the Teams collaboration. The second piece is now you can do workflows within Power Platform from Business Central. Then I'll keep piling this on, because also now within the last wave, they added the events within the Dataverse so that you can know that the data, you have those virtual tables. Do we know if we need any licensing for that? I don't. Anybody could tell me anything and I would believe them at this point, because I haven't even read on it. I know about the functionality. I know I can test it, work with it, and develop in it and make it work wonderfully. When it comes to deploy it, what we need for licensing, I have to throw it over the fence.
So I know that Business Central is a premium connector in Power Apps and Power Automate. So coming from the other side, if I was developing some sort of Canvas or model-driven app and wanted to pull in my Business Central data, then I would need a paid Power Apps or Power Automate license to do that. Kris, it sounds like you're thinking that you don't need it if you're going the other way, if you're doing a Power Automate based on Business Central instead of the other way around, or am I?
No, I think from my
Misstating what you were
understanding, that anytime that you need to connect to Business Central, you would need an actual Business
Yeah.
Central license.
Okay.
You also need Power Automate license. It's when a user, for example, I'm an accountant and I need to run a workflow. You can't do that indirectly, I guess, or you have the use right to run it within Business Central. But I can't just go and create a new Power Automate workflow and not have a Business Central license. You have to have almost like both, or at least you have a Business Central license to do it.
Yeah, because you have that premium, the whole premium connector thing. And
I need a stick figure drawing for this. So
do you have a whiteboard on this app?
we do have a whiteboard,
and you have RPA too, right? Like the RPA Power Automate as well too, like, right?
Yeah.
So it's called robotic process automation, that you have to consider things that's running on its own. How does that interact with your other applications? It's fairly complicated, this licensing stuff.
Well, and so that's what's interesting, right? Again, you take the sort of structured licensing of Business Central and a lot of the other Dynamics products, right? Where it's like you need this or this or this or this. These are sort of their defined silos. But then you have something like building a Power App, and people are like, well, do I need a license for the Power App? And it's like, well, I mean, if you have Office 365 or Microsoft 365, probably not. until you run into a premium connector. Well, what's a premium connector? Well, when you start building your app, you'll find out whether it's a premium connector or not. Look for the little diamond. So on that side, sometimes you have a lot of, well, it depends.
That's my favorite word. Can I do that? It depends.
It depends. It depends. It's tough. It's tough. When you have partners putting together quotes for entities who require a very strict, like, hey, what you quote me is what it has to be. Public sector type stuff. And a lot of the Microsoft stuff, when you're trying to get into, well, it depends in public sector contracts, it doesn't play well.
Yeah, I wish there was a simple guide somewhere that said, if you want to do this, use this. You want to do this, use that, and have it go through. I understand the idea of pay as you go and segmented it out. But if I go to McDonald's and I order a cheeseburger, I know I'm getting a cheeseburger. If I want a meal, it tells me I get a cheeseburger, a French fry, and a Coca-Cola for one price. And I know exactly what they are. This, it sounds like to me, it's, I could order a Happy Meal and I end up getting, a Coke, a double cheeseburger. I don't even know what they sell at McDonald's. I'm just picking this up from a commercial I saw. But anyway, you get what I'm saying. You could get, a Burger King sandwich in instead of, the McDonald's.
You don't want cheeseburger as you go, where all the components are individually priced out.
Now you're getting into the airlines, man. Because the airlines now, it's like, okay, if you want to have a seatbelt, it costs $10. If you want to get a bottle of water, it's $5. If you want to have a carry-on bag, it's another $25. Oh, but by the way, your ticket's only $20. But with all the fees of the things that you need to even get on the plane, it's another $300. But we're not going to tell you about those fees until you hit the checkout button. Paying
for the privilege to choose your seat. That's when we hit a new low, right?
Oh, you pay a premium. But it's not. I book flights often. It's better than that. You pay for the advantage of picking your seat, but you also have to pay for the seat you pick. So it's not like, okay, I'm paying for the seat I pick. It's I pay for the right to pick my seat, but then my seat's an additional $78 on top of the $20 you're charging me.
So we're saying that airline seats are premium connectors, right, in Power Platform, because you have certain rights. You buy your ticket, you'll get a seat. But if you want access to the advanced features, like choosing your seat, you got to pay a little something extra on top of that.
See, this would have been a good story.
It's a great
I can
story.
relate to buying airline tickets. I can't relate to buying Business Central licenses other than I do know about the Essential and the Premium, and that's about the extent of it. All that other stuff I just gave up on. So what else do we have as far as licensing is concerned between Business Central and the outside world? So from Power Platform, you need licenses. Are those licenses per user licenses, per connector licenses, per device license? What are the limitations on those licenses? Because the question will be asked, I can create a connector that can process data within Business Central and have 4,000 people use it. I know what you're supposed to do and not supposed to do, but I'm just wondering how the limits are or what the limits are on the use of these licenses as well.
Yeah, sure. So, I mean, the way I look at it is, first, please don't create a connector for Business Central when there's already one that exists, right? Just in terms of, in terms of programming, you don't need to reinvent a wheel if there's a good one out there. But if we're talking about things like...
Oh, I know many people that can make better wheels, or they think they can make better wheels.
Yeah, it happens.
Oh, wrong one. That was my joke. Right, Chris? Many people we know can make better wheels.
Yes.
I forgot I had this. Every episode now, people are going to get sick of listening to me until this. It's wearing off, if you notice, because it took me, a good 35 minutes to start playing with it. So,
hey,
last time it's like from the get-go.
Stream Deck would be proud of you. The in terms of Power Automate plans, you can license per user, right? Your per user plan, 15 MSRP, lets you create flows. But then you have per user with RPA. Chris, that gets into what you said, right? So if you want robotic process automation, if you want to be able to build bots that run on the machine.
like a virtual agent bot? Or
No, because Power Virtual Agents is a whole other thing. Just
That's a different licensing.
like desktop automation, whether it's attended or unattended. Did you ever use Auto IT? That was an old one.
no.
Basically, it was a fancy macro recorder. You went and you clicked on where you needed to click, it recorded all the steps, and then you could play. And
I use some of those things in the back. They were, like you said, they were screen recorders. They recorded your mouse movement and your keyboard strokes. So it, in essence, could open an application and run the application as long as the windows were in the same position. If it mimicked mouse movement and clicking. Okay, I understand that.
Yeah, so you could do some of that RPA stuff. And then there are per flow plans. And those get up into, I mean, here's the trick, right? It's only $100 a month for a flow, but you got to buy 5. So
Why
we're
do
in
you have to
purchase
buy
mode.
5?
Yeah, so you got to buy, so you're in for 500, even though they'll tell you it's only 100 per flow. You got to buy 5.
What is a flow?
So your flow is, hey, I'm trying to make this process go from A to Z. You know, I've seen or heard of people making like employee onboarding applications that make heavy use of things like flow. Maybe the person gets added as an identity, and as your AD, it triggers off this other thing that goes and requests the access it needs to systems. It sends the welcome email. It goes through that entire process. So, you know, I mean, it's meant to save a huge amount of time and money. So if you have repetitive tasks, they can be really good. But the advantage of licensing it at a flow level is if you have a ton of people in the organization who will be regularly using or sharing this. Otherwise, everything is sort of kept at that per user level.
Okay, got it.
There's something else.
Each one
too.
of us has our own.
There's something else too that you have to consider. What they call performance profile, and
there's something else we have to consider.
Yes. So depending on the volume of your flow, it does talk about performance profile, which is kind of low, medium, high, and then that pay-as-you-go plan, which gives you the unlimited performance profile. But then, for example, if you start with the low performance profile, you could do 10,000 limit, and then after transitional period, I think it gets you like 600 or 6,000. Sorry, 6,000, from 10,000 to 6,000. It's so complicated.
I have a question. Define volume. Is it number, quantity, like number of things, or is it amount of data?
I think when they say
trick question.
Well, I'm going to answer that in the context of Microsoft's documentation. I guess again, you have to read.
Then I will not understand you. You do not even have to answer it.
Okay, good.
If you're trying to answer anything in the context of that documentation, it's clear as mud.
Yes, yeah, it's very clear.
Yeah, I don't get very deep into. I know what you're talking about in terms of performance profile and some of that stuff. I don't get into that. I just kind of hope that when you set it up, you're not doing anything too crazy, and that we can get away with the smallest amount we can get away with, right? Sort of that minimum viable approach. But yeah, you're right.
So now you're saying that there's another price. Can we get into any CE pricing?
Oh yeah, we can get into CE
licensing.
But just to
and then Power Virtual Agents is where I thought of when I said that. I didn't mean to interrupt you.
Yeah, no. In terms of performance profiles, that's not something you have to pay for. The different plans dictate the performance profile you get.
Correct.
So your highest is that per flow plan. But I mean, I'll say this: Microsoft does a really great job of providing not so subtle hints as to who the pricing is for, right? So if you're putting out $500 a month for flows with your organization at the minimum, of course you're going to get the high performance profile. You know what I mean? You're the big spender at the casino. If you're doing it for free, or just through virtue of your Microsoft 365 plan, you're putting the low performance profile. But hey, you pay for what you get, right? But in terms of CE, I mean, there's so much there. you have, on sort of the sales and customer service side, both of those have your professional line, which is your floor. That's like your BC Essentials, right? Very moderate user needs, very limited customization. That's a big thing in the CE space is how many custom views you can have, or how many custom entities. Well, or I don't know if we're back to using tables now instead of entities. They kind of get used interchangeably in that space. And then you have the enterprise version of the same product, and that is all the same functions plus unlimited customization, and then a few more features stacked on top of that. But then there's add-ons for those too.
So with CE, can we connect to Business Central, or do we have to go through Power Platform and use the connector?
Yeah, so Business Central has some of the built. I've gone so far, and disclaimer, I'm not a deployment guy, right? But I've gone so far as to even connect, my Dataverse and my CRM instance to Business Central before. There's a lot you can do just within the assisted or guided setup component of Business Central.
Is there a license that you need for that, though? That's my question.
To connect the two, no. But you do have to, if you're asking if I want to have CRM and Business Central, I mean, you got to be licensed for CRM, which, to use the term broadly, but D365 sales. And again, right now you can only attach from Business Central to the professional versions of those products. So sales professional or customer service professional, which, like I mentioned, are kind of limited. Coming soon, right? Do you have a button down there for air quotes, right? Coming soon, you'll be able to, there you go. Coming soon. You'll be able to.
Oh, yeah, I'll do that. Coming soon.
You'll be able to have sales enterprise and customer service enterprise be a part of those. Those are perhaps, they might be overkill or overspend for some smaller companies who are just trying to find something better than Excel for CRM. But there's a lot of advantage in going to the enterprise versions with those customizations and some of the other value adds you get.
Okay, so CE has a whole slew of licensing as well. We can connect to the Dataverse, or you can also connect to Business Central. I don't know if I'm any clearer on any of this, or I'm more confused, but we'll keep going. Well, I appreciate this. Hopefully Kris and everybody else understands. Power Virtual Agent, you said that's a whole different universe. And I know Kris and I were talking about Power Virtual Agents because you can use them in a number of places. You can use, is that part of the Teams bots, Kris? You have Teams bots, you have website bots, right? You have many different bots that you can create within the Power Virtual Agent. How does all that work? Or is that out of the realm of what we're talking about?
I know I know a little bit about this one. It's not, even though the price has been sort of cut down for PVA for a while, I'm not seeing a ton of adoption on my end, which kind of disappoints me because I think there's a lot of value in something like that. But you pay for the bot, and you have different methods through which you can deploy your bot. So you don't have to, depending on whether you deploy it in Teams or on a website or whatever else you might want to, it doesn't cost any extra for those. So you just deploy, you just buy the bot entitles you to X amount of sessions. If you need more sessions, there's an add-on to have more sessions.
Sessions are simultaneous sessions. Sessions are interactions. What is a session, or did I miss that completely?
No, a session. Yeah, a session. Think of it more of the interaction. It says it begins when a user topic is triggered and ends when either the user's questions are answered. The conversation exceeds 60 minutes or 100 turns. In other words, you've just been nagging the bot for 100 times in a row.
Well, I was going to say, if somebody's talking to a bot for 60 minutes, that bot's probably ineffective, or they're just looking to talk to somebody.
They're lonely.
A 60-minute conversation with a bot would be a long process. Unless it's doing some sort of troubleshooting for you, then I could see it could be 60 minutes. But at that point, it might be a transition to a person Is that part of the actions of the virtual agents?
Yeah,
There's a little tangent here.
Yeah,
You can
transfer to an
go
agent.
through a number of questions and then transfer to a person.
Yeah.
And
I
just,
think your best
and then
spots.
Oh, somebody wants to talk to me.
Your best spots probably do that. I think that you have to have some sort of, if you want a bot to be high quality, right? Because they're an extension of customer service in a lot of ways. You have to have a next logical step. The bot can't just ever say, well, it's all I can do for you. Have a nice day. I think you have to have something beyond that.
I think I've had a bot say that to me, to be honest with you. I think it told me that it basically couldn't help me.
I had an automated system tell me that once. I was canceling an old credit card, and I thought for sure they're going to want to get a person on, right? To be like, why would you cancel this? And nope, the bot, the IVR, it was just like, you want to cancel? Great. Okay, done. Have a nice day. And I was stunned. Wow. I mean, how often do you get to cancel something and not have to talk to a human first?
It's rare. I think they are going to add it to where you have to be able to cancel just as easy as you can sign up. I think I read something about that recently. I could be mistaken. I could have been dreaming, but where that was one of the consumer protections, that if somebody could sign up for something so easy, they should be able to cancel just as easy instead of having to call. Because almost all services that I've used, you have to call and cancel. There are some licensing, within this space that I've been able to change a subscription, cancel the subscriptions, but other services, it's been a little bit more difficult.
Yeah.
So I don't know. So
you got to speak to a human, and they're like, look at how sad this puppy will be if you cancel. They try and
is
guilt
there
you
anything we
into
can
around.
do to keep you? We could lower the limit for you, and you can pay half price.
Yeah. Oh,
if you want to go someplace else.
There's companies that's really bad about that. Kris, are you on mute?
Yeah, I just realized that. But just to go back on that PVA comment, I don't know if we said anything. It's $200 as a starting point, and it's actually very simple. I think that's the most simple license that Microsoft offers. Is $200. You start with that. Anything, if you go and it gives you 2,000 sessions a month, and you can see this right directly on the website. And if you exceed beyond that, let's say you just have a lot of traffic, customers want to chat with your bot because maybe you built something really fun. Anything above that, over 1,000 sessions, $100 per 1,000 sessions per month for 1,000 sessions. It does also note that this licensing could change because it's a whole changes to the AI system, right? Because now PVA has the capability to use the Azure's OpenAI. It's limited. That pricing is limited until June 30th, 2023. So that pricing structure could get really complicated now that Microsoft is doing all this stuff. But yeah, I mean, it's probably the most simplified one that I have seen in terms of license. It also has the capability for Power Virtual Agent to have use rights to your Power Automate. So for example, if you built your Power Virtual Agent with something to trigger based on a phrase to run a Power Automate, so it can go out to your Power Automate flows and then trigger that and maybe wait to get a response or answer. And so it has that capability at least included to your license.
Have either of you taken the Power Virtual Agent in a day training course through Microsoft or one of their sort of authorized
I've
learning?
built Power Virtual Agents. I started with it personally as a personal project. Last year, I built a recent one where interacted it with the Chat GPT. Again, personal project, but we're just say it's pretty fun to do. It's pretty easy. Now with OpenAI, Azure OpenAI capability, I'm sure people is going to jump on this one fairly quickly.
I have not taken the training. I have dabbled with all of this stuff. But
it's
Kris
a good
GPT.
One.
This is where Kris GPT came in. I said this before in the podcast. I'll say it again. But Kris GPT came from all of this virtual agent and Chat GPT. And Kris answering me from one word answers to now when I ask him a question, he comes back with a paragraph of that he answered to any question because he's like the fastest Googler there is. He used to
Prompt.
be like the Google fact finder, or whatever results you get from Google. Then ChatGPT came out, and forget it. And then now he started automating Kris GPT. So that's the joke behind it. It's a fun joke. We tease each other on it. But again, like I say with the OpenAI, ChatGPT, all those bot types of thing, anything's a tool.
Yeah.
And, we all use tools to do things. You just need to know what's the best tool for the job you're trying to use. You need to use a hammer, or do you need to use an air gun, to put in a nail? Well, they both exist. One's not going to do everything for you. So
yeah. Well,
you have to do that.
Maybe one day with OpenAI and Power Virtual Agents, that's how we'll do our licensing conversations. I think it could be done now. If someone hasn't already done it out there, I think it could be done. It would just be a very long decision tree.
You can actually.
I don't even know.
Just to note on that, there is a preview component on Power Virtual Agent where you can reference a entire website, and it crawls your entire website and gives you responses. So if you can actually technically point it to learn.microsoft.com, and any sub pages below that, Power Virtual Agent or OpenAI, or I should call it Azure AI, would crawl through that and give you responses based on your questions. So it has that cognitive services. So it's pretty cool. So you could do that fairly soon.
I did that with, I don't remember if it was part of PVA in a day or something, but I did that with Wikipedia. So like you said, you could have an agent and all of a sudden it's got all the knowledge of Wikipedia. Well, for better or worse, right? But you have an agent and you're like, hey, what is the length of a blue whale? And without having to author a topic on it, it's able to go out and find that answer based off of, again, the source data you provided, Wikipedia.
Now with that OpenAI and all those artificial intelligence engines, we could go down the licensing road for those. A lot of them start off as free samples. You get to do fun, cool things. But then if you want to start hooking them up to agents, hooking them up to bots and all these other tools, they all come with a price. If these imaging services, the AI services, they're all great. But you can find yourself spending a little bit of money too, depending on what's there. Because if I see you have a bot, right? Kris is going to have a bot. He'll hook up to ChatGPT using the Whisper AI. I just wrote a bot to flood him with messages so that every ask he gets paid for. See, that's what we do to each other. That's the fun we have. It's who can make who paid the most.
Write a bot to make someone run out of sessions on their virtual agent.
Yes. And that's why they have to put that limit in as 60 minutes or 100 questions, because it's Kris.
Yeah.
Is what I always do. So. All right. Mr. Blake, sir, Mr. Kris, thank you for taking the time to speak with me today, or with us today. You both spoke with me because I have no clue about this, but I thank all of us for getting together. I appreciate the opportunity to speak with everyone about licensing. And I can't say that I'm any clearer, but hopefully anybody who listens to this can have a better explanation. I'm still stuck at Essentials, Premium, Team Member, Device, and External Accountant.
Oh, yeah.
But if you would, Blake, can you take a moment to tell everybody how they can get in touch with you to ask you or maybe talk with you about additional licensing information, or find some of the other great things that you are also doing for the community? Because I know you do have some contributions to the community that you have as well.
Yeah, sure. I'd be happy to. So you can reach out to me. I am one of the pre-sales engineers at Ingram Micro, so I can help you with any of your pre-sales questions, including licensing. Reach out to me at blake.cheek@ingrammicro.com. Professionally, you can also find me on LinkedIn, where I am generally pretty active. I am just linkedin.com/n/Blake Cheek. And I am trying to grow my YouTube base a little bit. I do things like a weekly digest and just pretty high level stuff over there. So you can reach me at youtube.com/@ as in the @ symbol, BizApps with Blake.
Great. So check out your YouTube video. They are informative. YouTube at BizApps at Blake.
BizApps with Blake.
Biz apps with Blake. I had that. I have the link on there, and it's like everything else. Like if I ever lost my phone, I wouldn't know how to call anybody because I just know everybody by name, and I just click my favorites or I subscribe to channels and I can see the information that's up there. But thank you again for this informative conversation, and I look forward to speaking with you again in the future to share some additional information with you. Thank you.
Yeah, we'll talk soon.
All right.
Thanks.
Later.
Ciao, ciao.
Ciao.
Thank you, Kris, for your time for another episode of In the Dynamics Corner Chair. And thank you to our guests for participating.
Thank you, Brad, for your time. It is a wonderful episode of Dynamics Corner Chair. I would also like to thank our guests for joining us. Thank you for all of our listeners tuning in as well. You can find Brad at developerlife.com. That is DVLPRLIFE.com. And you can interact with them via Twitter, DVLPRLIFE. You can also find me at matalino.io, MATALINO.io. And my Twitter handle is matalino16. And you can see those links down below in the show notes. Again, thank you, everyone. Thank you, and take care.